So, we're live. Ian.
Good morning.
Well, good morning to you. Welcome to Unlocking Human Potential. Thank you very much for joining me today. So for those listening, Ian is a lifelong football fan who climbed the ladder to lead international companies. He is a seasoned executive in sports, technology and gaming industries and a proud Preston North End supporter who recently achieved the ultimate fan dream of becoming his beloved club chairman.
That's right.
Woo-hoo. So over 2 decades at the helm of 2 London-listed companies, Arena Leisure PLC and Sportech PLC, he turned challenges into triumphs. Ian helped rescue Sportech from the brink of collapse, which was almost 100 million in debt, and transformed it into a thriving business that's returned and paid back the money and also left it with a 200 million in credit. So talk about complete unlocking performance. Along the way, he's worn many hats. He's a board director of Playtech, one of the world's largest gaming technology companies, and serves as the vice chairman of Weatherby's, providing tech services to the horse racing industry. He even helped preserve football's heritage as the chairman of the National Football Museum. Ian is proof that you aim high in business without losing your down-to-earth passion. He brings a unique blend of serious know-how and a playful spirit, exactly the kind of balance we love on this podcast. With his track record of leadership, lifelong enthusiasm for sport, Ian embodies the spirit of unlocking human performance and potential. So get ready for an inspiring, engaging, and probably a bit of humour conversation with Ian Penrose. How's that for an introduction?
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much for joining me. You were definitely one of the first people that I think I reached out to. In fact, when I was having the idea of putting this together, I think I even collared you and said, I've got this idea, would you come on? And almost 12 months later, we're here to the day. So thank you very, very much. So a little icebreaker. A lot of this stuff that we talk about is around curiosity. So I guess for me, if we start with what's something you're curious about right now?
That's a great opening. I think the something that is really interesting for me at this moment is, as you've said in that wonderful introduction, I'll have to meet that person. I've spent so much of my life in and around the business of sport, the business of technology, the business of gaming. And now, amongst the other things I do, I'm now chairman of Preston North End Football Club.
Yeah.
You know, the team that I've supported from the terraces to now to the chairman seat. And actually, what I'm really interested in, that I've only been in that role for 3 months, is actually trying to then start to understand the professional behaviour of sport.
Okay.
From the sporting side as opposed to the fan side or the business side.
Yeah.
And actually trying to understand what's the key drivers behind the scenes of a football club of how it works.
Oh, wow.
So that's very, very different, very interesting.
Yeah, sounds like a part 2 conversation in 12 months' time to see where that leads into. So this podcast has got a theme, so kind of 3 themes. The first one, we're going to explore, throughout your career, what have you done to make yourself optimal? So we're going to start with that. And then we're going to move on to how we unlock potential in others. So as a leader, what can we do? And so it would be great to go on to that.
Yep.
And then we're going to finish with any advice that you could. So our listeners are going to be kind of hopefully wanting to have the career that you've had or similar in the sense of, or are passionate and driven in the way that they feel they want to be motivated forward. So any advice that you would then hand to them, that would be awesome to finish with. Is that okay?
Okay.
So as always, let's start with you. So I guess curious then, over such a successful career in leadership, how have you managed to keep yourself, or how do you keep yourself and maintain yourself optimal through most of that career? Big question to start.
It is a very big question. I think you've got to look after yourself from a physical viewpoint, from a mental viewpoint, and what you're looking to achieve within all that.
Okay.
And so, I've just got an ambition that, I want to do things well. I want to have a positive impact, and I enjoy work. I enjoy working hard. I enjoy having a positive impact on myself and on others.
Yeah.
I, spent so much of my life on an aeroplane and hotels, as you know, Andy.
Yeah.
And therefore, it was always important for me, having eaten too much at times, drunk too much at times, and the rest of it when you're travelling, to actually keep yourself fit, doing lots of exercise, because I think that's good, one, for your physical state, but also for your mental state.
Yeah.
When things got slightly out of sync, I would come to you to give me a good kicking on the physio room, and I didn't know that would end up leading to here.
I know, yeah.
But it has, and I think it's always having a pride in what you do.
Okay.
I'm wanting to do better all the time.
And where's that come from? So that there's two things. There's what I'm hearing there is that there's a few things, and we're comfortable where you want to take this. So firstly, there's an ability where you've recognised that you staying fit helps you, looks after yourself. Is there a moment where you talked around balance? So has there been a moment where you got that wrong and you realised that you're less good at what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because there was a moment when it appeared that I was living away from home an awful lot.
Yeah.
And we were getting into a state of, the team was eating a lot, drinking a lot, working unbelievably hard,
Yeah.
really focused on building businesses. And as a consequence, the weight was going up, my condition wasn't great.
Okay.
And there was a point where, things were going very well from a business viewpoint, but
Yeah.
actually, I felt awful.
Yeah.
And there needed to be a moment where it was, whoa,
Okay.
stop. You need to get these things back in balance, because otherwise, this will all tip over at a certain stage. So that's what I did. That's when I suddenly decided that you really did have to balance in work with doing some exercise.
And is that something that you became aware of, or was it an external thing that made you aware of that?
I think in the main, it was internal at the time. But when you look at yourself and maybe you're not what you quite want to be, and you're carrying a few pounds more than you'd like to do, and you're more sluggish and the rest of it, that you need to sharpen up. Yeah. And so I had a real focus on that, and for the last 20 odd years, probably now 25 years of my life, I try and balance working very hard with looking after myself, and realizing that's really important.
And I think it's a really important, and for me, like you've said, I started off as a physio, so my transition into the coaching world and the consultancy world is, I get to sit have very honest conversations with founder businesses and senior leaders, and one of the things is you do get drawn into, and I would like to explore, how you deal with flights and hotels, and how, any advice for people that are doing that, because you do get drawn into that world, don't you? And especially when, I'm assuming that when you get to a point, as a chief executive, it's something you've probably been working very hard to achieve, and then you get to those things, and there's always the assumption that when you get to the top, the two things you're either going to have to work really, really hard, or it goes really, really easy.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's not the really, really easy piece, unless you want it to be.
Well, I think it's not the really, really easy piece. If you want longevity, because you will be found out, and therefore you will lose your job in sooner or later.
Yeah.
But I think, to me, getting to the top and doing that piece was then, you wanted then to have a positive impact on others.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And you wanted the organisation to have a really positive impact around itself. And I didn't want anybody to think they could work, or they would be working harder than me, because I wanted them to take the vibe from the top.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of brought some good behaviours.
Yeah.
But also the impact of then, what is your impact on others? Because you can drive people too hard at times.
Yeah.
And you have to get a balance to that.
Yeah.
And you have to understand your impact on others. And so all those go within the mix. There's no what's that phrase? There's no silver bullet for sorting these things out. There's it's a variety of things, and getting a real balance to all those aspects.
And I think for me that sits a lot within my kind of remit. That's why this kind of podcast is this unlocking And the kind of the second part is how do we unlock in potential in others? And one of the things I got from you used the word pride. Where's that come from? When you smiled then when I even said that, it's the pride of doing a good job and the pride that you're going to be working so people can see you working hard. Where's that come from? Is that something that is just a part of you or something you've developed along the way?
I actually don't really know. I think one, it's clearly got to be part of you because you can't make pride up. I mean, it has to be part of you in the first case. And so I presume that's in the DNA of me and many others out there. Probably some of it comes from your upbringing, from your parents and your family and your brothers and your family now and the issues. You want to do a good job, because you want to. For me, I wanted to be successful for me, but I wanted to be successful for my family, and so they could have some of the benefits of that. And I wanted them to know that, hard work in life was important, and that's always been a driver for me. And if that's the issues around doing a job properly, that was the approach I took. Yeah.
So the word role model seemed to come up in where does that land with you? Would you see yourself as a role model to, I've been very fortunate, privileged to meet your family. And they're all going on to do, especially your children are going on to do, some pretty wonderful things of their own. And I've always found, personally, and I've been privileged enough to spend a lot of conversations with you. You've always been, like you say, I'm just jetting off here or jetting off there, but you've always been really, really grounded. I guess is there an element of you see yourself as a bit of a role model so that other people in the organisations can look up to you and go, quite an inspirational thing. And so I'll go there and then I'll go, how do you stay grounded?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure I subscribe to the view of looking up.
Okay.
I think clearly, if you're at the top of an organisation, you are at the top of the organisation. But I think, to me, leadership is about it's about your impact on others. Yeah. And I've never thought of myself as a role model, but I've actually thought that you need to display behavioural characteristics which impact positively on the team and on the organisation, because you can't do anything on your own in terms of an organisation. You need it together. You need a teamwork. You need the whole team to be pulling and bringing their own skill sets to achieve success. So if that means in certain aspects I've been a role model, then great. I've never thought of it in those terms. But it's actually, and I think to a degree, it's understanding the impact that you have on others, and which includes on yourself. And you want to do things properly and correctly. Well, I want to do things properly and correctly.
No, and that's definitely the vibe I pick up, and I've always picked up, which is why I was absolutely delighted when you said yes to coming on here, because I think that's something which, I've probably never said this to you, but you've always been, I've always been really inspired by, what you've been achieving throughout your career, but how you've, and I say this with a polite and loving heart, but a normal guy. Do you know what I mean? I've never found an ego. You've always seemed to be really, really grounded. Is that something conscious, or is that something that is just who you are?
I think a lot of it must be just who I am. Okay. From an overall piece. I'm very conscious I want to remain grounded, normal, whatever the right phrase would be. And also, you've met my wife Vanessa. Yeah. She, Vanessa, works in areas that, in my view, work in the real world. Yeah. Volunteers at the hospice. Yeah. Looks after people in their final days. Yeah. Used to be a health visitor. Used to work in A&E. Did roles where it impacts on people's lives. Yeah. And so when you gave a really nice introduction on some of the things I've done in business, and then when Vanessa talks about a family who've lost, a child or what have you, when you get home at night, it actually brings you back to the reality that I may deal in big numbers, but there's life, and Vanessa dealt at the real cutting edge of life, and by talking about those things, maybe it helps you be more grounded, because you don't get carried away in big numbers of big businesses doing big deals. You like it, you like the impact of it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend I didn't.
Yeah.
But you're suddenly, or it was very easy, come back at the weekend or come back in the evening, wherever it was at the time, and talk about a situation that's happened in Vanessa's life, and you think, oh my God, that's a real thing.
So do you think that might have been part of help? That might have been helpful, because I think there are, and this is a huge assumption, that there are leaders in businesses not the size of yours that I've certainly come across or been working with, that are probably in an organisation who would look up to somebody in your role, and there's an assumption that they're not so grounded and they have get carried away with their. So do you think there's an element of like coming home and having those conversations with Vanessa that's actually been quite helpful to your career?
I think it's probably been integral to it.
Oh, really?
Because leadership's about the person, isn't it? And it's about leading from the top, setting standards and examples and principles and visions and action, execution. And I think actually having better people skills as a consequence of life experiences, whether you've had them or your wife or partner or whoever has had them, make you a better person.
No, and I think I posted something the other day saying that it's interesting, isn't it, that you are become about the people who are around you, and sometimes you do need, I call them critical friends, where when you are, and I've certainly got a few, of where, if something I'm doing or saying they don't quite agree with, they don't have a problem of just calling me out on it or anything else. And I find it really, really helpful to give me that other viewpoint of the world, so I don't get away with, not that I've got an ego, but
no. And I think it's right. You just reminded me of I used to work for one of the UK's most successful entrepreneurs, Trevor Hemmings, who was an amazing individual, and he said to me once, you just remember the phrase, Ian, when I was probably in my late 20s.
Okay.
And he said, a wise man takes what he knows, listens to what he hears, to what he's then told or what he sees in the world, takes the best of all that and becomes a wiser person. Nice. And it's very true. Very true.
Well, if that isn't a clip for this podcast, then I don't know. Oh, we've got that one on film. That's brilliant. No, but I think it's nice. And so, on that, so he was obviously quite a mentor, would he be, or an inspiration for you when you were coming up through?
Mentor, inspirational.
Awesome.
Challenging.
And how important do you think people like that, for people listening who maybe don't have like that, seeking people like that out?
I think if it's a very genuine relationship that you have with that individual, then I think it's hugely important. No,
that's really, really good.
But you have to act. But equally, and I think again about leadership, to me, my view, I always used to describe it as acting like a sponge.
Yeah.
And I would sit and listen and absorb, as much as I could, because to be so close to such a successful individual, you really want to hear it all. You want to listen to it. You want to absorb it. You want to watch and learn.
No, and I think it is. I always use the word: are people coachable? So have they got the ability to just actually in a room like that, stop and just listen and absorb? I think it's so powerful, isn't it? And actually learn so much by actually just opening up your ears and just sitting observing sometimes. And I think can be so powerful. And I've been very, very fortunate through my career. Not even just sitting having conversations with yourself, we just sit and I think you can take in so much stuff that can be helpful and moved into so many different ways, can't it? So I think it's really, really good. So just my last question about yourself then, how do you see how have you developed and grown over your career? What is it that you've maybe taken, you talk around your exercise and you talk around kind of, the groundedness and all the things that you've done and the pride that you do in your work and you've taken all the way through. How do you feel that you from when you've started in leadership to where you are now, is there any key things that you've taken along that on reflection that's made you who you are today?
Yeah, I think there was a key moment when I was running the first public company, and things were going very well. We were working unbelievable hours. We were living it. Had a brilliant team. We were doing some great stuff, and I was a CEO of a public company in my mid-30s.
Yeah.
And so I drove the team really hard, and so hard that my board said, "You need to be psychoanalyzed, Ian, because you need to understand yourself better."
Okay.
And as we've not got 4 hours for this podcast, I'll fast forward the process. And anyways, as a direct consequence of being psychoanalyzed and the rest of it, I then took on a life coach, or I was given a life coach, who I retained for 17 years.
Wow. Okay.
And he was amazing, because he could say things to me that nobody else could.
Okay.
People talk about the CEO of companies being quite a lonely place. At times it is quite a lonely place. And he could challenge the stuff that I was doing, not from a business decision point, but actually from a personal point. And tried to understand my impact on others, whether they worked for the organisation, whether they were around the edge of the organisation, family members, prioritisation. And certainly I did, because I was maybe not the nicest of people 25 years ago. He had a massive impact on my life, because it was a moment of like, stop, think about this.
Right.
And that was so important to me. So if there ever was a moment, it was
that moment.
It was getting my life coach, because he could say things that other people couldn't. And just like what you were saying earlier, Andy. And then the secret was to listen to him. Yeah. Because again, there's no point having him if you don't do anything about it.
And I think, and also you've got to be open to that, haven't you? And I think like you were talking about when your openness of Trevor Hemmings, that you were just open to just sit and absorbing, And again, I've heard that a few times you mentioned that. So obviously I heard you on another podcast, I'm just a boy from Preston. And that, I think you've used that a few times when we've had a conversation. And I think that kind of, and I'm going to use, in my words, the humbleness to realise actually that you are open to other people kind of offering you some feedback, and then taking that feedback and then rolling with it. But I think that comes from, it's got to be the right person, I'm assuming.
I think it's got to be the right person.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to have enough people around you who you trust.
Yeah.
That actually support what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And again, Vanessa was massively important on that process. And some of my friends equally sort of said, "Come on in," and those sorts of things are really important. Yeah. And you've got to have that network.
And a massive,
and you've got to believe them, trust them.
Yeah, and I think it's, and it, like you said there, that CEO, that's not the first and only time I've heard, it can be a lonely place. So actually having people around you that you trust and can have those honest conversations with can be really helpful.
I'll take it even more to you. You know, when we first met, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. I didn't want to go anywhere else after that.
Yeah.
Because I trusted you.
Yeah.
And that was, as you were beating me up with those thumbs and fingers and we were talking about all sorts of issues around business and people and the rest of it. It was just, it helped me.
Yeah.
And it helped me, and hopefully it helped you.
It's been a massive impact on me, because I think, like I said, especially when I moved, my curiosity moved into doing these conversations. I think you were the first person I asked. So yeah, it's helped me massively, because I think I've always found, just our conversations inspirational. So selfishly.
But equally that worked for me.
Yeah.
Because despite the fact you used to hurt me on those things, I used to really enjoy our chats, and because they were important. And it helps your mindset.
I think so.
It helps your mindset.
Definitely does for me. It really helps me being surrounded by people I trust. It's been a massive part of my career, and I don't think I'd have been here without that. So talking about other people, we've touched on quite a few times about how you talk about getting the best out of others, and that's been part of what you describe as leadership. So you said leadership is about trying to get the best out of others. Can you expand on that then? So what is there any, and it can either go down a story or an example, or have you got any go-tos if you're, of how do you get the best out of others? Is there any, where would you go with that comment?
I think the central piece is actually, I don't think, leadership isn't a hierarchy. You want all individuals within the organisation to thrive, to take responsibility about whatever they're doing, and be confident about that, and be challenging. And you need to set an environment that actually allows people to have some confidence, and allows people to develop themselves as you go through that. And I think that's really important as you go through. I'm not a big believer in management phrases. I think there's so many textbooks and around phrases and the rest of it. But I think the most simple thing is, if you can get your team wanting to do what you want them to do, then you're halfway to achieving your goals. Because everyone's after the common direction. So, for people to want to do what they're doing, they've got to know where they're going. They've got to want to do where they're going. They've got to enjoy the environment they're in. They've got to want to contribute positively to that environment. And, the job at the top and those around the people at the top are to set that framework and to set that environment and to set that ambition and that goal, and so that everybody knows what's trying to be achieved and that they feel important. And I like to spend a lot of my time walking around, whether it was the office, whether it's the technology centre, whether it's now the football club and elsewhere, talking to everybody. Because I never wanted to be the remote leader. I used to spend, as you know, we talked at the beginning of this, I used to spend 7 to 10 days of every month for 8 years overseas at some activity that we had, with boots on the ground, because I wanted the whole team, when we employed, well over 1,000 people, to know that I cared. And that I was going to be there. And one of the things I tried to do about certain key people was remember something about them. So whether they were in an office in Connecticut in the United States, or they were down in the office in Singapore, or in Holland, or just in London, or wherever, that I knew something about them. And because then, again, it shows you care. It shows you have an interest. And you mentioned it earlier about you've got to listen. And I think it's all very well as leaders. Lots of leaders do lots of talking. But actually, it needs to come back as well. You need to listen, because listening is having that impact. And
but it's listening with intent, isn't it?
It is. And it's caring about that. And I could always remember, I'm thinking now, I can always remember we used to have the head of our HR in Connecticut, which is just north of New York, and she was a massive Boston Red Sox fan. Can you remember her now? Big Red Sox fan, and she had a dog called Fenway, after Fenway Park.
Fenway Park,
the home of the Red Sox. Because I like dogs. We have dogs in our family, so I could always go and walk around the office and go and sit in her office and talk to her about her dog and remembering its name. And I'm just giving that as an example of actually remembering something about them. And I know she once said, because it worked its way around, how does Ian know and remember my dog and my dog's name and come in and say the rest of it? And because that then you've got that impact on key people who then talk around the organisation about organisations and individuals who care about what's going on. And that's what I did. So
I love that.
So, remembering things about people is important.
How so then? So
it shows you care.
100%, and I think but it shows you're also interested in them. And one of the things that the reason why I called this unlocking human potential is the fact of, all interaction is a human-to-human interaction, isn't it? This is what this is, and the fact that you're being just you may hold the CEO badge on your jacket, but actually what you'll mean somebody as a human to human level, you're actually going, are you a dog person? I'm a dog person. So again, it's meeting them at a level that's not just like, because there is, and again, it's an assumption that when somebody's talking to the big boss, they can feel sometimes people can feel nervous and that can affect performance
Yep.
or things like this. But actually, if you're meeting them at a level of human to human, which it sounds like that's what you were doing very successfully, it allows them to feel comfortable. And I think people do thrive, don't they, when they feel comfortable?
Well, 100%. I totally agree with that. And I also, I was with the philosophy that lots of people look at organisational charts as triangles with a CEO at the top, and it works its way down. And I used to always think I was trying to invert that triangle.
Okay.
So the CEO is at the bottom.
Yeah.
Because the individuals within the organisation who have most impact with your customers are those who interact with the customers.
Yeah.
And the CEO might talk about setting the vision, the framework and the shape. But to me, the CEO is there and therefore that works from top down.
Yeah.
I think it's the other way around. I think it works from bottom up. And if the CEO can create the environment and the whole organisation deals better with its customers and suppliers and the rest of it because of the environment that the CEO sets and facilitates that, then the organisation would be better.
No, I love that.
So I always thought that was really important.
No, I love that. Can we just explore around creating environments? Because it does seem to be a buzz thing, and I'm not saying you, but within the industry, and especially the world I live in, everyone goes, "Oh, you have to create a really good environment." And well, how do we do that? Is there any examples that you've done of, there's what you've done, and how does that then play down to maybe other people in the C-suite or other senior leaders? How do they then model what you do, or?
I think everyone has to be their, again, a phrase that's often used these days about authenticity.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be yourself and you have to be authentic in that process, because otherwise, sooner or later you get found out.
You do, yeah.
It's just the way that it is. And I would say, maybe as an example, when I was at Sportech and I first walked in, and it was a real challenged organisation. With over 100 million of debt and a very difficult place for the banks and its future not looking very good, putting it nicely.
Yeah.
But it was incredibly hierarchical.
Okay.
Directors' rooms and directors' canteens and away from the staff and all that stuff that and people walking around serving the board drinks and stuff during the day, and the first couple of weeks we wiped all that away.
Right. Okay.
Because as we talked about, we weren't going to do this by death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
We were going to sort it out, and the business, most of it was in the early stages based in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Place you know very well.
Yeah.
And we needed to make some tough decisions. And like in most organisations, if you look at the organisation, most people in the organisation low down know some of the things that need to change.
Yeah.
They've been there a lot. They look up, if you've been hierarchical, they look up and think, well, someone please sort some of these issues out. Yeah. And in certain instances, number of managers don't see the change that the team really need them to change.
Yeah, yeah.
And so just affecting, so that organisation, just quite simply, we changed very significantly. We put all the board and senior managers' offices in the main area, so they were very visible. That we were all in it together. We were going to sort it out together, and took away this sort of hierarchy of structures. We made some key decisions that needed to be made, and as I said to the senior team, we changed some of the senior team, but as I said to the senior team at the beginning, I said, I've not got all the answers. Yeah. Because if I had all the answers, I wouldn't need anyone working for me. Yeah. But clearly, I'm not very that intelligent, so I need all of you guys. Well, many of you guys. And I said, just be very clear. We're all in this canoe together. Yeah. And if you aren't all rowing in the same direction, I will throw you out. Okay. Yeah. We will all be in this. We'll all be honest with each other. We'll all be straight. We'll all look after each other. But we're only going to achieve success by everybody going the same way. Yeah. We can't do it in any other fashion. So just being honest with people.
But that's quite a brave thing to do as well, isn't it?
Not when you go and burst.
Well, true.
You haven't many choices.
Yeah, okay. So it was the easy option. We have to do something quite.
Yeah.
So are you comfortable just expanding on, so change again, again, just from my experience and, working with, leaders and founders, one of the things that I think a lot of leaders do, that they're aware that things need to change. And well, yours, like you say, was going to go bust, so change was inevitable.
I mean, that's why I got brought in as well. I got brought in to change
it. So the change was there, but then how do you? I know you said you've taken somebody from being served drinks in the boardroom, and then you're plonking them in the middle of the room. How did that? Was there any behaviour changes that the team needed to adapt to kind of come in line with that?
Yes, and not everybody made it.
Okay, that's fair enough.
But many did.
Yeah,
because equally sometimes there's a bit of inertia on decision making.
Okay.
Now, lots of people talk about it and 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 talk about it.
Yeah.
But you've got to draw a line.
Yeah, you do.
And at a certain time, you've got to draw a line and get on with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And we had some great people. Some great people work there. It's a great organisation. People, loved working in the organisation, and we had a lot of fun. It wasn't easy, and it needed some tough decisions at times. But you had to be open and honest and frank.
Yeah,
and I think the worst situation for anyone, people can understand, if they're in the organisation and in it for long term. People can understand if they're not in it, the organisation, and they're going, they're going to have to leave. It's those in the middle that just don't know whether they're coming or going, and people are being indecisive and unclear. That's damaging for an organisation. Yeah. So honesty, people understand honesty.
Definitely, and I think, and that's it, isn't it? I think if you know, good or bad, if you know where you stand, then sometimes it's helpful. It's my kind of internal philosophy. I'd rather people be honest, either good or bad, to me face, because at least I know where I stand with situations.
100%.
And there's no then confusion, is there? And I think then if there is that honesty, and you use the word fun, and I think if people can come, I think we started with saying, if people realise they matter and what's important, but also they can turn up to work and they enjoy coming to work, and especially if they can see that things are changing, then surely it's a good motivator for people to kind of go, oh, actually, right, I'm going to give it my all and I'm going to go for this.
I think that's right. And you give people a chance and an opportunity. And in my experience, most people take that.
Yeah, 100%.
Most people take that because they want to come to a place that's successful. We all like to say, I was part of that.
Yeah.
We were part of that.
Yeah.
We contributed. It's great. It's a great place to be. So if you can create that environment and that feeling and having fun, and you've got the work piece, but actually having some of those things outside of work, organising events, keeping the organisation together, allowing for a bit of fun, because that builds that spirit, that builds that togetherness, and that approachability.
Especially in the environment that probably you went into. I bet it wasn't very much fun when everyone felt very vulnerable and thought they were going to lose all their jobs, or they were going to go bankrupt.
Absolutely. So to bring in openness, clarity, decision making, and an understanding.
Yeah.
The results suggest that things went very well.
They were very well indeed. No, it did very well indeed. Just, I guess my curiosity with that is, what I get this really strong vibe from this conversation is that you're also very good at understanding people and what it is that, to get the best out of people. I'm just curious, where's that come from? Is that something that you've maybe developed along your career, or is that something that you've got a natural tendency, or where would you say?
I think there must be a natural tendency at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But I think inevitably it must have been developed over the course of my career, of people I've worked with, as we talked about earlier. Watching, listening, learning off others.
Yeah.
That has to have an impact and make you more curious around those things. So, I think it's, you're born with it. You have it in your DNA, but it needs to be developed over that
and
time.
develop it and strength. No, I mean, the reason I ask it is because I think, and again, it comes back to that authenticity word that you used. Because like you said, you can say something to somebody and go, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And everyone go, yeah, all right. You've actually got to believe that, haven't you? And how you portray that across in a way that other people believe it. It's quite powerful, and it is a skill, isn't it? That not many.
I think it is a skill, but I think whether you're not in my 20s anymore, they were a long time ago, or in your 30s or in your 40s or 50s or even now in your 60s. I think when you look at other people,
yeah,
and for those who are listening to this podcast who are in their 20s or 30s, if you look at your bosses and you think of the behavioural characteristics that you like,
yeah,
and you think of the behavioural characteristics you don't particularly like, if you major on the stuff you liked and think, well, maybe if I take some of those on board, and I learn from that, and you work your way through, and remember the impacts that when your bosses spoke to you, and I can remember spoke to you when you're in your mid-20s, and I used to go home and say to Vanessa that such an Andy spoke to me today, and used to think you were like suddenly 10 foot tall.
Yeah.
So the impact that you can, so to remember the impact that you had when you're in your earlier years, and the impact that leaders had on you, both good and bad.
Yeah.
And actually take those good pieces and build on those good pieces and remember them, because you can then have that impact 10 years later on people who are working for you. And it becomes a cycle of, but spending time on that, because, they're really important.
But I hear what you're saying. I don't know if this is, I think that's such a skill to just, and I really do hope people listening are taking that on board, that, because we sometimes, we look at negative situations, it might be interaction with our boss, and we go, oh my God, and they might call him all the names under the sun, under the breath, whatever. But the positive intention behind that is going, well, that's great, because that's the person I'm not going to become when I move into a leadership position. And it's remembering those moments. That's what I took from that. I think is really, really powerful, that you're still remembering the moments at 20, the way someone spoke to you and how it made you feel. And then you've got into a position where you're making people in the organisation feel the way you feel as 20. And I just hope that there are people listening that, that if they are in senior leadership positions, are taking those times to go, okay, how am I making other people in the organisation feel? Because I think that's so important.
I think it's critical.
Okay.
Because you talk about culture and setting the ambience and all those things. Well, there are many, many things that come to that, but actually making people want to do things better.
Yeah.
Comes actually about treating people properly, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love that. I guess then my last question on this is, my curiosity is, like, over your very successful career, over the last 20 plus years, 20 plus? plus
nearly approaching 30.
30 plus, okay. How has it changed? How is developing people changed? There was always... I get that, especially with the current environment of how we interact with people, whereas I guess there was assumption maybe people were less kind 30 years ago and a bit more kind now. So what in your, there's a smile there, what's changed, do you believe?
I think
for the good and bad, maybe.
I think, clearly things have changed.
Yeah.
I think maybe that 30-year ago time, I think people were more probably dictatorial and direct, maybe, than they are today, or some people anyway. But I think the working environment has changed.
Yeah.
I think COVID changed the working environment. Working from home's changed the working environment, and I think it remains really critical, though, within all those aspects, that actually good culture, good standard setting, good vision, good action, good execution is ultimately all about people.
Yeah.
And you have to create that environment. And we've talked on many reasons and rationale of how that would be put together. And I think particularly now in an era of Zoom and Teams and all the rest of it, in a way that I was boots on the ground and forever on an aeroplane and in hotel rooms and so on and so forth. It's different now. But I think that means that leaders and I think organisations need to still remember that the thing that really binds and makes organisations work and successful is the interaction of people and the togetherness of people and the understanding of people and the encouragement of individuals, whether that's the guys at the top, guys and girls at the top, whether that's those lower down, just entry level coming from school or from uni or wherever. And I do think that organisations have to work harder now, because maybe I'm a bit of a dinosaur within this point, but it's really important that working from home doesn't detract away from togetherness and team spirit, and I don't think, which has changed, and probably my kids have had an impact on this as well. I don't think the days of 5 or 6 days a week in the office from 7:30 till 7:30 is necessarily the right way forward anymore. No. That's what worked in an era, and it was what worked in my era of when I was the CEO or the CEOs. I think now clearly work can be done efficiently in a different way, but I still think that leaders have to work even harder on pulling together organisations and team spirit and ethos and communication and messaging, because ultimately that's why you're working for that organisation.
Yeah, and it is, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because for my, certainly working from home has been embraced by lots of organisations and employees, and I get that. There's a bit for me also that the but, I don't like the word but humans, we do sometimes need the human interaction, don't we, with colleagues? And I think to work well, like you've said, how do you ever get to know that lady's dog is called Fenway if you haven't taken the time to have those interactions? If every interaction that you have is very work based, you never build those personal relationships, then like you've said, we could lose that part of what you're saying has been really successful through your career. I
think that's right, and that's why I think organisations need to work harder on actually creating that, because in a way you can't have those conversations over Teams or Zoom.
It's difficult.
It doesn't happen in the same way, in the same fashion. That's not saying the same impact can't be had. But organisations need to work really hard on blending the hybrid way of working now to be successful, and some will be very successful at that. And some less successful.
Do you think that is probably the biggest challenge going into, bigger organisations and teams going into the next maybe 5-10 years of, especially with remote working and flexible working more and more? That is going to be the biggest challenge of how to get teams coming together. I
think yes. I mean, everything works in a cycle, doesn't it? And challenges have existed throughout mankind on
and continue to.
And without me going back to the dinosaur, so things have evolved, and it's this is the challenge of today. And there was challenge 10 years ago and 20 years ago and all the rest of it. So it's just an evolution of those of challenges. But I think it clearly is a big issue that organisations increasingly are working on and for. And I think it's really critical, because you've got to engender working environments that suit all expectations of today.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
Together with how you engender and how you build in the ethos of teamwork, association, and the desire to work for that organisation and achieve success within it.
And in my experience, that's across all organisations. A lot of the organisations that I work for and the leaders that I coach, they're recruiting for now. Maybe it's a sales role or a customer service role, but they're working from home, which is great because they've got the flexibility and they're happy with that. Although that's the challenge of going, well, how do we actually make sure that they're not alone because that's the other problem, isn't it? They might not interact with somebody all day. So it's how do they, and that's, especially in smaller organisations, that's, you're going to have to, like you say, take a lot of effort to make sure that is happening.
I think that's right. And you miss those moments of, just one moment.
Do they call them the water cooler moments, where you can just kind of...
Seems a bit American phrase, doesn't it?
Maybe I've been listening to too much. Although, yeah. Yes. No, that's brilliant. So one of the things that, the third part of this is, we've had a really good conversation. There's been absolutely loads of stuff, and I could keep asking you questions all day, because I think it's, selfishly, I find it fascinating, and it's certainly my own personal hobby, understanding people and, especially how people have done it. I guess then for the listeners, I always find that when we have a really good conversation, it's like, okay, so then if I'm listening, what do I do with this, information? So I guess, could you give, maybe I've put 3 practical things that people could try today to make themselves a better leader, and that you can take that from the thing of go and make themselves better. So how do you make, if they're a leader listening to this, how do you make themselves more optimal? Or you could go down the path of saying, okay, how do you get the best out of other people? So where does that land with you? Put you on the spot.
I think that's a question they needed some preparation for. What would I suggest? that people do? I think the first thing would be just go out there and talk to your team.
Okay. Yeah.
Talk to them about what we're trying to achieve. What are we trying to achieve today, this week, this month, this year? Medium-term strategy plan of the organisation. Make sure the organisation knows what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's a small company or a big company, it's the same issue. And spend time ensuring that the leader knows what his or her employees, staff members, team members are doing, what drives them, what's in their what is it about them, what are their family circumstances, show that empathy that the organisation needs, that it's two-way, and I think that's really key.
Just on that, so I think what's really interesting about that is, so when you spend time getting to know people and you understand what's going on in their worlds, sometimes it allows you to, as a leader, and I'll take your thoughts on this, it also makes you realise when the behaviour change happens. So, for example, if you know somebody, if you spend time with people and the behaviour is a certain way, and then all of a sudden you see a behaviour shift, you can be curious what's going on in the world, because that's the human part, isn't it?
Yeah, because you can say, "Are you all right?"
Yeah, if you've got other stuff going on in the world, haven't they?
Yeah, and then if they need, a day or two to sort something out,
yeah,
maybe a family member's very poorly.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it?
Then go and take a bit of time, because in my experience, if you give that person, let's say 2 days off or 3 days off to sort something out,
yeah,
you can look at that one of two ways: that you've just given 3 days away and that's a waste of money, or the rest of it. Or you could turn that right on its head and say, because of your actions, that you'll get more than 3 days, because that individual is suddenly, likes the organisation, likes the ethos, likes the leadership, understands that it's been kind.
Yeah.
And certainly my life has shown that, in the people I've worked with, is that if you look after others,
yeah,
they look after you as well. And so I actually think it's very much give and take, and the organisation should be empathetic in those situations. It should look after individuals. That isn't in a rule book or isn't in a manual or the rest of it. And actually, I think I personally, I don't want to look at this in financial terms, but I look at that as an investment, because actually you're helping that person, you're sorting them in a time of need.
Yeah.
Therefore, 99 times out of 100, they would help you in your time of need.
Well, I was thinking, but I was also thinking it's a long-term thought process, isn't it? Because that person, you know, I don't know about what your experience has been, but from the challenge for a lot of businesses is recruiting good people and retaining good people.
Yeah.
And if you've got a culture where people are going, do you know what, I'm having a really bad time, not only was it picked up by leadership, but actually they gave me some time to sort it. Actually, that's gonna put credit in the bank for them going, actually, this is a really good organisation. But also shows a message to the rest of the team that you do care, don't they?
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's a really, really powerful.
And that's about the cultural point.
Yeah.
The cultural point.
But that all comes back to what you were saying about how you, that boots on the ground of actually having to spend time with people to recognise those insights so that you can take those actions, can't you? Whereas if you are, you know, absent from that and you're not present with people, then you're going to miss those things.
But you and I view you the same, Andy. You know, if someone looks after yourself in a time you need it,
yeah,
then you would give them payback.
Yeah, 100%. But I think it's where trust comes from.
It's give or take. You trust.
Yeah.
Trust that's a great word. You trust people.
Yeah, and for me, and that's the bit, isn't it? It's about, but it's meeting them at the human level, and I think that's just it's so powerful, and I think it's something that you've expressed, you know, all the way through this, and it's something which, well, we've always connected at a human level, and I think, you know, and I think that's why I was excited about this. So, one principle you wish every leader understood.
The impact that they have on the organisation. That the organisation does look at the leader or the leaders,
yeah,
and takes the tone and the direction they're from.
Okay.
And I think, you know, the leader needs to understand the significance of that impact, because it is huge for the ways we've talked over the last hour or so.
Yeah.
It is significant, and you know, he or she can, you know, unlock great things from great people, or can actually just damage the organisation by their impact on it.
I like the way we've even got the branding of the unlock into that comment as well. That was gold star for that as well.
I like that.
I'll treat you to that. So, you know, so we've got loads of insights into this, I guess. How would people listening then, is there any actions that you think people would take apart from, is it just going to speak to, you know, the team? Is it going to go, you know, where would you sit with that? As in, is it going to go and get people to, right, today, do you actually know your team?
Well, I think if you don't know your team, there's a real deficit there, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you have to know your team. You have to know, you know, what makes people tick. You have to show an empathy. You have to show an interest in understanding. And, you know, there is, you know, if you employ, you know, tens of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, clearly you can't get to know everybody.
Yeah.
Unless you're Superman or something. But, you know, that's not going to happen. But actually being seen and being visible.
Yeah.
Being seen, even if you can't talk to everybody, that they know, you know, leaders are on the shop floor, or in the technology centre, in the office, walking the office, not just sitting in their own
bubble,
but actually spending time with the organisation. It's the empowering that makes the real effect.
Yeah, and it's the being present bit for me is just, I think that is just something that I've heard, you know, certainly heard a few times, or quite a few times, about yourself, about how your presence, and, you know, even if you couldn't speak to anybody, like you say, just the thought of you've been on a flight and flown halfway around the world just to walk around the factory or pop into an office, surely, you know, has had a big impact on lots of people.
Absolutely, and
it's certainly something some people can do, isn't it? Being present is an easy thing to do, isn't it?
It is.
You know?
I can remember flying out and going straight into a meeting in Singapore.
Oh gosh, okay.
And thinking, God, I'm going to fall asleep in a minute. I'm absolutely exhausted. But you know the impact of it on the team who are trying to close a deal on, you know, in Asia that was really key.
Yeah.
So you do what you do.
You do what you do, yeah. But again, going back to where we started, it's then also making sure that you find that balance and looking after yourself at the same time, isn't it? And not just always staying in that state of fatigue.
Because again, that's the understanding yourself piece, which is massively important, and as I said earlier, for me was the moment that maybe gave me a real awakening about leadership. Is actually understanding yourself. To me, was massively important.
And it's the reason why I always start with that as the opening kind of part of this podcast, is because if we replace selfish with self-care, and if we go, if people turn around and say, "Oh, you're being selfish," putting time for yourself in the diary. If you go, actually, it's about self-care, because if I'm optimal, and it sounds like some of the decisions you had to make throughout your career, you had to be in the right headspace to make those big decisions, because you were trying to turn around some big organisations, and and getting off a flight and going into a meeting, you've got to be able to find that optimal self, the optimal part of you.
Yeah.
So actually keeping yourself optimal, and by optimizing your self-care and finding what works best for you, gives the best version of you. So when you do meet that people, like you've said, that 20-year version of you, and if you walk into the room and you're half knackered and go at somebody, that's the first impression they've got. Whereas if you find the way to get optimal, and that first impression is that 20-year-old Singaporean, whatever, is that the right? Who then goes, "Oh my gosh, that's the CEO, and he's just shook my hand and said hello to me," and that's the impact he goes home to his partner or friend.
Absolutely, and that's so important, because you've got to, there are key moments you have to focus and perform.
Yeah,
and that takes physical, mental, lots of other things as well.
No, that's brilliant. So we're just going to wrap up,
right?
In case anyone does want to follow you and what you're up to in your career, where do you normally hang out? Are you on LinkedIn?
I'm on I'm on LinkedIn. I normally hang out at
the gym and away from people. Away from people.
At the football ground.
And that's what I was going to say. So what are you working on next? Is this the next?
Well, as you said at the beginning, I've got a full portfolio of stuff that I do with Playtech, with Weatherby's, DataWorks, and Preston North End, and it's they're all fascinating.
Yeah,
and I love what I do for each of those organisations and what they're trying to achieve, and actually being able to talk around some of the things we've talked about today, Andy, to some of the key guys in those organisations, because there's some brilliant, hugely talented people, and I love that side of it, and long may that continue.
I can generally tell, and I think that's something that's come across through the last hour or so, which seems to have flown by, is just your genuine passion for people and supporting people and being present with people, and I've got no doubt that will only continue.
And you want to make, or I do now, because now I work for numerous organisations rather than just one as a CEO. I equally have had some great people who've impacted on my life. We talked about Trevor Hemmings before, but there are others along the way, and they undoubtedly made me a better person. And I now like to, and I'm fortunate enough now to be in that situation where you can look at the leaders in certain other organisations and others, where you can think, actually, if I can help make the organisation and certain of the individuals better, then that's great.
That's lovely,
and that is a really nice, it's a nice thing to be able to do. I mean, whether I'm successful on that or not, others will decide.
I definitely believe you, and I think it's a really lovely way to kind of conclude this. Just before we do, what we always ask every guest to do is just, if you give one final challenge to the audience, what would it be? So what would you challenge them to do? So they've listened to this, they've picked up some absolutely gold insights that they've gone away with. What challenge would you set with the audience and the listeners today?
Look at yourself in the mirror before you go to bed and say, did I do the best job I could have done today?
Brilliant. Ian Penrose, thank you very, very much. It's been a brilliant conversation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it a lot.
You're
Thank
more
you.
than welcome. Cheers.